welcome to the deep dive. Today we're plunging into a quiet yet truly profound shift happening across America. It's not something you'll see dominating the headlines or, lighting up social media feeds, but if you look closely, you'll spot it.
Yeah, in everyday places, right? Like gun counters, shooting ranges.
Exactly.
And what we're seeing is this, well, surprising new demographic. It's really challenging the traditional picture of gun ownership.
It is. These are individuals entering what's often called the Second Amendment community, maybe for reasons that might really resonate with you.
Yeah, definitely.
And for this deep dive, we've got a really insightful piece. It's titled DEI Meets 2A, Diversity, Equality, and Inclusion Under. And the author calls it the big-ass tent of the Second Amendment.
Yeah, evocative title. And it really does unpack this phenomenon, makes you rethink some assumptions.
It does. So our mission for you today is to explore who these new gun owners are, why this, significant shift is occurring, and what it truly means.
Right. For them and for the broader conversation around the Second Amendment. We'll be pulling out the core insights, the surprising details, all from the source material, just to help you get the full picture.
Okay, so first things first. What our source immediately highlights is this fundamental shift in who is showing up.
Yep.
And it's far from what you might expect.
Right.
The piece makes it really clear. The people buying guns now don't all look the same anymore. They don't vote the same. They don't worship the same.
Or love the same. It's a remarkably diverse group stepping into this space now.
Absolutely. And the source gets specific about the demographics, doesn't it?
It really does. We're talking about queer, trans, Black, brown, immigrant individuals. It also explicitly mentions women who, don't trust the police to arrive in time anymore, or men who feel unsafe just walking alone, and people who believe very deeply in bodily autonomy. So it's not just a vague idea, it's a specific breakdown.
Very specific.
Yeah.
So once we understand who these new gun owners are, the next big question, as the source points out, is why?
Yeah, the motivation.
And the answer isn't what many might assume. It seems absolutely critical to understand these individuals are not buying guns to make some kind of, political point.
No, not performative.
Exactly. As the piece emphasizes, it's really out of deep concern and this quiet self-determination. They genuinely feel vulnerable and afraid.
And not in some metaphorical way.
No, not symbolically. It's very real, very personal.
And this raises an interesting point the source makes. It offers a pretty sharp critique of what many maybe believed was a societal safety net.
How so?
Well, it argues that the perceived protection from, parades, brands, rainbow logos, corporate affirmations, all that stuff, has been revealed as temporary, conditional, and often hollow. It even calls it radical chic instead of real radical solidarity.
Wow, radical chic. That's needed. Suggesting a shift from just, appearances of support to a real need for self-protection.
Exactly. It's a sharp critique, and it kind of reframes the whole conversation about safety for a lot of people, doesn't it?
It really does. Which leads to this next point in the source, connecting the dots. It explains how shifting laws, maybe revoked protections, and emboldened hate are making people realize something.
Realize what?
That what passed for inclusion was maybe just appeasement or good optics or, frankly, performative.
Oh, okay.
And it left them totally unprepared for when, as the source puts it, the state turns cold or the crowd grows hostile.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
And connecting that to the bigger picture, it's this realization of what, according to the source, other Americans have long known.
Which is?
That governments can turn. Mobs don't always need permission. Safety isn't guaranteed, even in your own neighborhood.
Right.
The core insight here isn't just about, the mechanics of self-defense. It's this stark realization that real freedom, for many, isn't about waiting for safety to be granted.
It's about having the means to secure it yourself.
Precisely. A shift from relying on external systems to, building internal resilience.
Right.
Self-reliance, it really challenges conventional ideas of protection.
And it ties into that really profound idea mentioned in the source. Civil rights don't mean much without the ability to enforce boundaries.
That's a heavy statement.
It is. It suggests true freedom requires the means to defend. It makes you think about rights not just as privileges, but as responsibilities too.
Yeah, definitely. Now, from the perspective of the, let's say, existing Second Amendment community, this shift is obviously significant.
How so?
Well, the source briefly touches on how this long-standing movement has, for decades, often felt pushed to the margins, mocked, misunderstood, legislated against.
Right, it outlines how that community has felt marginalized.
Yeah.
But given those feelings, how does the source say they're reacting to this influx, this new diverse group coming in? Is it like an "I told you so" vibe?
Or a genuine welcome? That's a great question.
Yeah.
Well, before we get right to the welcome part, the source does first lay out some historical context about regulation. It gives specific examples of how complex, sometimes arbitrary, these rules can seem.
Like what?
Take California, for instance. Common self-defense tools, Glocks, AR-15s, they face pretty significant restrictions,
Okay.
approving only specific older Gen 3 Glocks, for example, or requiring rifles like AR-15s to have these compliance kits that limit how they work, or fixed magazines you can't easily remove.
Fixed magazines.
Yeah, and the source makes the point that these laws often end up affecting legal, peaceable citizens more than criminals.
Right, which creates this really interesting contrast the source highlights. While some places saw this erosion of rights, as they put it, other states pushed the other way entirely. We've seen the adoption of constitutional carry, or permitless carry.
Meaning you don't need a specific government permit to carry a firearm.
Exactly. And rolling back other restrictions, too. The piece notes that back in the 80s, very few states had broad carry rights. Now, more than half do.
It's a pretty dramatic shift over a few decades.
Huge shift.
And so this brings us back to the broader Second Amendment community. As the piece describes it, they see a moment of opportunity in all this.
An opportunity.
Yeah, a chance to build something broader, stronger, and more enduring. And they do that by welcoming anyone willing to take on the responsibility of arms.
Regardless of identity, politics, background.
Exactly. It signals a potentially profound pivot, welcoming people from maybe unexpected places.
Which raises that question about common ground, then. The source explains that while these diverse groups might not agree on, every single issue,
Right, probably not.
the shared belief is that safety cannot be delegated, and that rights must be exercised to be preserved.
That's the core connection.
The message seems to be, we're neighbors. Maybe we don't share the same flags or slogans, but we share this fundamental belief that you deserve the tools to protect what you love.
And the source even lists examples of common, reliable tools, ARs, AKMs, Makarovs, widely available firearms chosen for practicality.
Practicality, right.
Yeah.
It emphasizes preparing to resist tyranny, not just cosplaying tyranny, meaning focusing on real readiness over just like looking the part.
But, and this is a huge but, here's the crucial caveat. The source really hammers this home. Just buying a gun isn't enough.
Not by a long shot.
No.
Yeah.
It warns against treating a firearm like some kind of magic talisman. And it uses this powerful analogy.
The violin one.
Yeah. You wouldn't buy a violin and expect to play Carnegie Hall without practice, right?
Of course not.
Well, the same, it argues, goes for firearms. Practice, training, it's essential.
Absolutely. And the source stresses spending money on training over that Gucci tier gear.
Right, the expensive accessories that look cool but maybe don't add practical value for a beginner.
Yeah. It advises starting simple. Get a used Glock 19, 26, or 27, maybe a basic AR, shotgun, or bolt-action rifle. These cover, quote, nearly every civilian use case.
So skip the flashy upgrades for now.
Exactly. Spend the extra money on training. That's the core advice.
And the article points out that classes are widely available. It mentions women-only classes, beginner-friendly ones.
And it specifically mentions LGBTQIA+ and trans-safe classes, too.
Right. So the resources are out there. The idea is invest in ammo, range time, really learn how your tools work.
And how you work under pressure. That's key.
Absolutely. And most importantly, how to be safe.
Which brings us to that fundamental aspect, safety culture. The source details specific rules, but says they aren't just rules, they're a deeply ingrained culture meant to keep us alive.
Like what?
Well, don't point muzzles at anything we don't intend to destroy. That's not just about avoiding accidents. It's about respecting the firearm's potential.
Okay.
And we don't keep fingers on triggers until we're ready to fire. That's core to preventing negligent discharges.
Basic but crucial.
Totally. Those, plus chamber checking, verifying the chamber is empty, and clearing before cleaning, they're the bedrock principles. Always treat every firearm as if it's loaded.
It's a whole mindset then, not just a checklist.
Exactly. Safety.
It reiterates it's about love for your life, your community, your people. It's about a deeply personal, often quiet, self-determination.
And the source really does end on a welcoming note, doesn't it? Saying, the water's fine, the doors are open.
And there are more people here who understand you than you might imagine.
It suggests that despite all the differences, appearance, voting habits, whatever, under the weight of responsibility and the promise of liberty, we carry the same load.
Which kind of leaves us with this provocative thought, doesn't it? In a world where ideas about safety and community are changing so fast,
Yeah.
how do different groups define and pursue their own security, their own self-determination? And what unexpected common ground might pop up when you get down to core human needs?
Beyond the headlines and the political divides.
Exactly, when basic safety is truly at stake.
Definitely something to mull over as you navigate your own understanding of safety and freedom in today's world.